Hello, friends. I'm Dr. Vivek, and today I'm going to discuss Jane Austen, a very important writer. And Jane Austen's novel, basically Pride and Prejudice, very important novel written by Jane Austen. First of all, Jane Austen's life. The lifespan is 1775 to 1817. This is the lifespan of Jane Austen. And Jane Austen is an English novelist whose works are on romantic fiction. Basically, romantic fiction. She's dealing in her works. Most of the works are romantic uh, in their nature. Her realism, biting irony, social commentary, as well as her claimed plots have gained her historical importance among scholars and critics. Means the important feature of her writing is realism, biting irony, and social commentary. And she is have a plot plot intrigues in her novels that has historical importance for scholars and critics. And the works of Jane Austen, from most of the works are of from 1811 to 1816. Basically, the works are first work of Jane Austen is Sense and Sensibility, 1911. It's written, and Pride and Prejudice is written in 1813. Mansfield Park, 1814, and Emma, 1815. These are the most and important works of Jane Austen. And two additional novels, Northanger Abbey and Persuasion, published posthumously in 1818. These are the two works which were published posthumously in 1818. Uh, and began a third, which was eventually titled Sedition, but died before completing it. Jane Austen is one of the greatest novelists of manners in English. Her only object was to entertain her readers by a truthful presentation of ordinary social scene. Means in her novels you find the social scenes which has a truthful presentation of ordinary life, ordinary family life, basically in her novels. In her novels, we get a perfect picture of the world in little, a microcosm. Means you'll find the world there in the pictures, in the characters, in the family. You'll find through that presentation the whole life, whole life. You'll find it's called microcosm of the world of life. The plot in a typical Austen novel is built around the affairs of heart, especially of feminine heart. You'll find love in her novels. Now, the summary of Pride and Prejudice is very important to understand the summary of Pride and Prejudice. The two important characters, Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, uh, they have five daughters, no son, and the eldest one is Jane, then Elizabeth, Mary, Kitty, Lydia. These are the five daughters of Mr. and Mrs. Bennet. And now they are planning to get them married, these five daughters, and they are finding or searching a suitable match for these five daughters. And when they heard that Bingley is coming to their city, to their place, to their village, where they are going to organize, or they are coming to engage a party kind of thing, and they are coming for party. So when they heard, I think they were thinking a suitable match in Bingley. So in the dance party, there is a long description of dance party. Mr. Bingley was dancing with Jane, the eldest daughter of Bennet, uh, and Miss Bingley spied to notice that Darcy pays no attention to her. The sister of Mr. Bingley. These are the basically in the party there were Mr. Bingley, the sister of Bingley, that is Miss Bingley, and Darcy. They are the three characters. And as I told you, Mr. Bingley is dancing with Jane, and Miss Bingley want to have a liking for Darcy, but Darcy is not paying attention towards her, and she was very angry with this. Darcy refuses to dance with Elizabeth. It showed the arrogance of Darcy, that when Elizabeth proposes, or there was the request from Elizabeth or the family to dance with Darcy, but Darcy, because of not in a state, or he was not in a mood, so he simply refused the invitation. Now, Mr. Collins, there is a character called Collins in the party as well, and clergyman. He is a clergyman and stands to inherit Bennet's property. He wants, because Bennet, Mr. and Mrs. Bennet don't have a son, so he is planning. He has in mind that the property he can get. He's a pompous fool, and he has a liking for Elizabeth, but Elizabeth refuses. Wickham. Wickham is also a very important character. He is a handsome young soldier and military officer, very handsome guy he is, and he's very friendly with Elizabeth. And Elizabeth also, all the daughters of Bennet daughters are friendly with, or have liking towards Wickham. So when they were talking, they were very friendly. This Wickham and Elizabeth, and in that friendliness, he tells about the Darcy, the cruelty of he cheated him, how he's in disinheriting his property. So crudely or shrewdly, he was a shrewd person. So he intrigues towards the to. This Darcy. So he tells, and Elizabeth now has made his mind that Darcy is not a good person. News of Mr. Collins and Charlotte Lucas, the uh, Charlotte Lucas, Elizabeth's best friend and poor daughter of local knight. Now, the news came that Mr. Collins has eloped with Charlotte Lucas. Charlotte Lucas is Elizabeth's best friend and poor daughter of local knight. Now, Jane visits Bingley in the city, where Miss Bingley behaves rudely. When Jane, after a time, when they are not have a conversation, Jane, the eldest daughter of Bennet, she went to Bingley, but Miss Bingley, because she did not like mm, uh, this. So Miss Bingley did not behave properly, and uh, Jane was sent to his place. Elizabeth visits Charlotte, who lives near the home of Mr. Collins' patron, Lady Catherine de Boroughs, who is also Darcy's aunt. Now there is when because Charlotte Lucas is a friend of Elizabeth, so Elizabeth goes to meet Charlotte, and they were living at as a tenant in Lady Catherine de Boroughs, and Catherine de Boroughs, Lady Catherine is the aunt of Darcy. So now Darcy frequently comes to visit Elizabeth because Catherine de Bourgh is aunt of Darcy. So Darcy is interested now. Darcy is interested in Elizabeth. So off and on he comes to visit, and Darcy proposes for marriage to Elizabeth, and this proposal was refused because she has in her mind that Darcy is arrogant. He has disinherited Wickham. So he did not have. She did not have. Elizabeth did not have uh, uh, mm, good opinion about Darcy. So she refused. Now, now the reason of Elizabeth refusal, why Elizabeth refused the proposal, the marriage proposal of Darcy. First one is she considered Darcy as arrogant and unpleasant, as I told you. She scolds him for steering Bingley away from Jane and disinheriting Wickham. The second reason was most important reasons were. Uh, Means she thinks that Elizabeth thinks that Darcy is responsible to have to make Bingley and Jane separated. They have separated them, so he is responsible for this because he is a friend of Bingley. And second is he has disinherited Wickham. So these were the two reasons. Now Darcy, in response to this, Darcy is writing a letter to Elizabeth, saying, answering the questions, these allegations. Now he clears this. Darcy clears everything. He says yes, he has made a distance between Bingley and Jane because he thinks that they are not serious in their love. So yes, in that way he is responsible or he is the cause. Secondly, he writes that Wickham is a liar. He is a very shrewd guy, and he is a liar. He is lying. In if he says that I have disinherited him, basically. Further, he writes that Wickham attempts to elope with his younger sister, Georgian Darcy. He tried to, or he eloped he attempted to elope with his sister Georgian Darcy. So he is a very cunning or very dishonest person. Elizabeth reevaluates her feelings toward Darcy. Now, answering to these allegations, when Elizabeth reads the answers. Now she is bound to reevaluate her feelings toward Darcy. She on Now she on a journey to a neighborhood of Pamberley, Darcy State. Now after time, Elizabeth goes for holidays goes for a trip to make her holidays, and fortunately or unfortunately she reaches to the Pamberley. It is a Darcy state. She inquires about Darcy's from her servant, and they gave a very good opinion. They said uh, that Darcy is a good person, so they gave a good opinion, a good about the personality of Darcy. Servant tells good about Darcy, and there was union with Darcy. So now there is a union of Darcy and Elizabeth. News reaches that there's a news came that her youngest daughter Lydia has eloped with Wickham. So news came, and with the efforts of Darcy, fugitives were caught and their marriage was arranged. So Lydia now got married with Wickham. Now, in the end of this novel, Bingley and Jane got married, and Elizabeth and Darcy got married. So there was a uh, happy ending of this novel where when Bingley got married with Jane and Elizabeth and Darcy got married. Uh, Jane Austen says that Elizabeth is the most uh, beautiful heroine of all his novels. So there were many heroines in her novels, but she's the most beautiful. Now the important questions of Pride and Prejudice, this novel. First one is justify the title Pride and Prejudice. How it's right the title of the novel Pride and Prejudice. How it is pride and how this prejudice of Darcy. So you can answer it. Illustrate the love between Darcy and Elizabeth. How this all plot depends on this on the question, and there is a love. So you have to describe the love between Darcy and Elizabeth. Write down the character sketch. Very important character sketches like Fitzwilliam, Darcy, Elizabeth. These are the important characters. Fourth one is illustrate Jane Austen's skill of plot construction from the novel Pride and Prejudice. So plot construction is always very important in the novels of Jane Austen. So here also it is important. Now explain a very important quotation. It is she herself write to her nephew in her letter where she says Jane Austen herself says that the little bit 2 inches wide of ivory on which I work with so fine a brush as produces little effect after much labor. So it's all about her writings. It fits in the characteristics of her writings where she says that a little bit 2 inches wide. She's so finely working. It's just like the working, the writing is so laborious or so fine of just working on a 2 inch wide ivory, which I work on so fine a brush. How finely she works as produces little effect after much labor. The effect is there in her writings, but after a much labor. As on the ivory, it is very difficult to work on ivory, which is very small, 2 inches one. So it's just uh, uh, this is a metaphor. So uh, so this is all about Pride and Prejudice. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much.